All right, and welcome to Gilbert's All About the Media podcast. Today's episode. So a while back, Jesus and I did Samurai Jack, and we talked a little bit about Avatar because just to go back everything, and again, if I still sound a little weird, it's because I am still getting over this cold that I had. Because I'm recording this around the same time I recorded my previous episode. So, to my point, so when we were doing our Samurai Jack episode, I was thinking, like, why don't I, what's the word I was looking for? I think we were talking briefly about Mako, and we talked about how Mako used to be, an Avatar, and then, Mako unfortunately died and was replaced by Greg Baldwin because Mako was, the voice of Uncle Iroh. But a year ago from this recording, was when we got our the live action remake that came out on Netflix. I decided, I guess I will do an Avatar episode, but I don't want to do basically like the entire series. And plus, another thing I forgot to mention that it's been 20 years since the show first aired on Nickelodeon, and it was a whole different show. I love the show. I might love it more than Samurai Jack, actually. And it's a great show. I met Dante Bosco, who voiced Zuko, and Dante Bosco is a really cool guy. If y'all have never met him, he still sounds the same. Like, the dude's 50. I think he's 50. And he still sounds like Zuko. And not only that, we're getting an earthbending Avatar now. So we're almost coming in full circle. I don't know if this is something they're going to continue. So, like I said earlier, we're not going to be going over the entire series. We're actually just going to be going over season 1 because like season 1 has been adapted twice. First, obviously, was the M. Night Shyamalan movie that's been regarded as the worst film ever made. And I do agree with that. And then second, was I going to say second? Was the recent remake on Netflix to I don't even know what's the word. How am I going to do this? Especially because I'm by myself. I thought of this episode last minute. Nobody's with me, which is unfortunate. So what do I do here? How do I do this by myself and try to deal with or try to break down season 1? So right now, just kind of like how we did with Samurai Jack, we're going to talk about the characters. And then we're going to do a compare and contrast with season 1 of the film adaptation as well as the Netflix adaptation. Because what I'm hoping for is hopefully, and this is just a long shot, hopefully that at least the second season, the Netflix adaptation, because they've already, like, I think a week after the Avatar was released from Netflix, Netflix agreed to do a second and third season. So what I'm really hoping for is that hopefully Netflix releases both seasons 1 year after the other. And I know it's going to take a while. Yeah, I know it's going to take a while because reason being the first season took a long time because it was regarded as, I think, the most expensive show that Netflix has ever produced, and B, they had to take their time. They took a long time trying to film it, which regarded they have to. I mean, the special effects are the key importance of this show, especially with 90% of it is pretty much special effects. So, well, I mean, people already know Avatar, and if you haven't seen the show, please watch it because it's hard that I got to explain a 20-year-old show that made a comeback in Netflix during COVID time. And yeah, the thing is that, like, people been binge watching Avatar since it was put onto Netflix. I have seen the show. I've seen the show since it came out on the Nickelodeon, and I really liked the show at the time. And I wasn't a huge hater of the movie in the beginning because at that point I thought it was just like not that bad of a movie. But then, like, I looked through all the analyzation, and then you give it a rewatch, and then you're like, okay, this movie's actually really bad. Given also M. Night Shyamalan's track record, because he's made a lot of bad movies. So like I said, I'm Avatar: The Last Airbender. We know the main story is basically Aang is the Avatar, a human being that can control all the elements of air, fire, earth, and water. Not only that, he's a reincarnated version of the Avatar. And by the way, I'm going to talk about Legend of Korra too, just because I think I might want to. However, Avatar had 3 seasons. Legend of Korra had 4. So I'll cross that road when I get to it on how to deal with that. So anyway, Aang is our main character. Everybody knows he's the Avatar. He's the Last Airbender. Not only is he the Last Airbender, he's the Avatar and he's the Last Airbender. Because Aang is seen as a 12-year-old boy, but he's actually 112. 100 years ago, Aang had to run away from home because he's friends with this monk named Monk Gyatso, who's pretty much raised him like a father or grandfather figure. I don't know like how he really viewed him, but he overheard that the monks were gonna separate Aang from Monk Gyatso because the monks felt like with the two together, Aang will not learn to be the Avatar, especially of the war that's happening right now. Because in that, what happened was, so I'm going to go kind of into history. Fire Lord Sozin declared war on the air temple. And by that, I mean like he destroyed the air temples because he knew the Avatar would be an airbender because there's a cycle. It's water, earth, fire, then air. The previous Avatar, Avatar Roku, was a firebender, or of the Fire Nation. And the Avatar before him was Avatar Kyoshi, and then the Avatar before her, Avatar Kuruk. And then before Avatar Kuruk, Avatar Liang Shin, I believe that's what her name was. Going all the way back to Avatar 1, who we are first introduced in Legends of Korra Season 2, which actually is a really good episode if you guys never checked it out. But like I said, Aang's 112. He was frozen for 12 years in an iceberg until Katara and Sokka, the brother and sister of the Southern Water Tribe. And Katara is the only waterbender because the Fire Nation, when they declare war on all the other nations, the Fire Nations, they imprisoned or killed all of the other waterbenders of the Southern Water Tribe. And then there's mainly waterbenders in the Northern Water Tribe. They found Aang frozen, and Aang doesn't know that it's been 100 years and that he's the last airbender and that there's been a war going on. Then we find Prince Zuko, again, Dante Basco, really cool guy. And he's on the hunt to search for the Avatar to reclaim his honor because he was banned. We always know the full story. That when Zuko was 13, he was invited. I wouldn't say he was invited. He finally got to see how military plans are, or how the military plans out. Their strategies on attacks and stuff. And the general was talking about this plan. I think it was, if I can remember, it was to take over the. I think one part of the Earth Kingdom. And Zuko says, no, we can't do that. People are going to get killed. And because of that, he was forced into an Agni Kai, which is a duel that the Firebenders will fight to claim victory. Zuko thought he was fighting the general, but it wasn't the general's plans. He may have been carrying out the plans, but it wasn't his plans. It was his father's plans, Fire Lord Ozai, voiced by the great Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is definitely one guy I want to meet, but I heard and I'm not going to spread, I don't want to be spreading rumors and stuff like that, but so don't really take my word for it. But from what I heard, Mark Hamill is kind of a douche when it comes to conventions. But it's always a mixed thing. People say, yeah, he's cool. And then others say, nah, he barely pays attention to you. So I guess it just depends on the fan experience on that. But, Mark Hamill does brilliantly. I mean, he does brilliantly anytime he plays, a villain. The Joker is obviously the most famous one of all. But Zuko didn't want to fight his father, and he begged for mercy. And his father says, word for word, you will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher. I looked away. And then, he burns Zuko's face, and now he has that scar as a reminder. And Iroh, everybody needs an Iroh in their life. Everybody needs an Iroh in their life, and, everybody has to be an Iroh at one point in their life, too, because Iroh's, everybody says, he's the greatest character of all time. I think like people have watched the show because of Iroh. Iroh's like the voice of reason of the character. Again, he's voiced by Mako, R.I.P. Mako, and then later on he's voiced by Greg Baldwin. When we all were young, if anybody had seen the show since the beginning, like not Netflix, I mean like since it was on Nickelodeon, none of us really knew that. It's not that none of us, that a lot of us didn't know that Mako had died after season 2, and that he was replaced by another actor, Greg Baldwin. And then you don't really hear the difference. Yeah, I like some guy recently. I was talking to him. He's like, "You watch Avatar?" He's like, "Yeah." You like Arrow? Yeah. Did you know he was played by 2 characters? I told him that. I said, "Did you know he's played by 2 characters?" He's like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, then you're not an Avatar fan if you don't know that exact moment, because you have to know that exact moment." And like we said when we talked about our Samurai Jack episode, Greg Baldwin knows he's not Mako. The fans know he's not Mako, but the fans love him because he brings Mako back to us. You know what I mean? He always says, "I'm just a Mako impersonator." Like that doesn't mean he doesn't love playing Iroh or Aku. He does, but he loves he does it to honor Mako. He never likes to take credit for playing Iroh and Aku, because again, he doesn't want to disrespect Mako. He was a huge fan of both shows, and not just that, a huge fan of Mako in general. But like I said, the fans know, like they know, but they love Greg Baldwin for keeping Mako's legacy alive. But Iroh's the greatest character in the entire show. And those are pretty much our main characters. We do have Ozai, as we mentioned, and then Azula, who appears twice but doesn't even have any lines. But she becomes a key figure in the second season. But you know, we do get to know a little bit about her, because Zuko at one point captures Aang, and he was talking about, Aang's kind of passed out, and Zuko was just like talking to the passed out Aang, or I think he was in the spirit world, I don't remember. And like Zuko says, like his sister is always like the one that gets, more praise and stuff from the father. Like his father says Azula's lucky, or Azula was born lucky, and Zuko was just lucky to be born. I mean, you see like how this endless cycle of just like what every Fire Lord Sozin, Fire Lord Sozin, who started the war, Fire Lord Azulan, Zuko's grandfather, who's carrying on Sozin's work, and then because of that, Fire Lord Ozai is, he has that same power, and I don't even know what's the word, influence passed on to him, which he passes on to Zuko and Azula, but Azula takes in a lot more than Zuko does. But that's because Zuko was always around his mom. His mom is way different from Ozai. That's all like really the 5 main characters. We are introduced to Mei and Ty Lee in the second season. Another character that we meet in the first season is Bumi, which was Aang's old friend. Legit old friend. Like, they were the same age. They are the same age, but remember, Aang was in an iceberg for 100 years, and Bumi just lived an extra 100 years. In the recent show, he says, "I just happened to, or it's just luck that I'm still alive." And he says, "I don't know if it's good luck or bad luck, but there's that." Who else we got? Jet is also another character. We'll talk more about Jet later on, but keep in mind, Jet is a freedom fighter, I guess you would say. Yeah, I think that's most of the characters. I will talk about Zhang a little bit. So, oh wait, no, forgot 2 people. Okay, Commander Zhao, who does appear again in the movie as well as in the Netflix remake. Commander Zhao is I think he starts off as commander and then he becomes admiral. I don't know how the rankings work, but I could just call him Zhao. He's voiced by Jason Isaac, who played Lucius Malfoy. And y'all wouldn't know this because he uses an American accent when he voices the character. So that's actually like, I was so surprised. Oh wow, that was Jason Isaacs. Because remember, Jason Isaac is, I believe, British. He is British, sorry. And obviously he changed his voice for the show. And then again, go back to Zhang. Talk a little bit about him. He's a rogue member of the Fire Nation. And there's just this episode where Aang he's already learning not firebending, waterbending, and then he eventually wanted to start, or he was learning a little bit of waterbending, but then he wanted to learn firebending when he heard about Zhang Zhang. And Zhang Zhang is a person who hates that he's a firebender because he's always seen fire as destructive. Yeah, he's always seen fire as destructive. So that's why he was hesitant to teach Aang. And plus he knew Aang wasn't ready to learn firebending, which he wasn't. He's not in any of the remakes. Really, guys, I'm just doing this so I can have a first segment before I can get into the cut comparisons or the remake comparisons, which I think is going to be a little bit longer. So, you know what? I'll take this break, and then once I'm done with the break, then we can go and actually do the cut comparison. So we're going into break. All right, we're back. Give me a second, y'all. All right, we're back. So let's get to the cut comparisons. Let's just see, let's compare and contrast, the two remakes. This one will be longer because, for starters, when the movie failed because of, M. Night Shyamalan for some reason tried to fit an entire season of a show into, a 2-hour movie? Taking away so many details and stuff like that. There's more than that. There was more than that, obviously, but I'm only one of 2 people in this world that think what would have happened if he continued, But that's just how it goes. The movie failed. They didn't do another movie, thankfully. I was a bit curious to see how this would have all gone. Because the only one I know that does, if I could think, Dev Patel I know is the only cast member from that movie that actually does a lot more acting and stuff like that. I don't remember anything about the girl who played Katara. I know the guy who played Sokka, the guy who played Sokka, and that was an issue with the movie, was that they changed all the names to sound more authentic, but again they were whitewashed. There was no Inuits or Asians, and all the firebenders were Indians. But the guy who played Sokka was just feels dirty just to say it. The guy who played Sokka was I forgot it was named Rathbone or something like that. He played I think his name is Jasper from Twilight. I don't watch Twilight. That's not vampires for me, so yeah. But I know he came out in those movies. Yeah, they changed those characters. That's the one difference from the other 2 shows, is that it's Ong, Iroh, Sokka, what else? Agni Ki. Instead of Agni Kai, it's Agni Ki. It's spelled Kai. Why would you call it Agni Ki? And then that's the other thing, though, is that so let's just start off this way. The show, the remake of the show, it shows us how the war began, the death of Monkey Atso and all of the Air Nation or the Air Nomads, and then we get to the point where Aang gets frozen, and then it transitions to how and then all 3 pretty much to start this way. Or the other 2, the original show and the movie, was Sokka and I'm saying it right, guys. By the way, I'm going to say it right. I'm not going to use the terms that Night Shyamalan used. Sokka and Katara found Aang frozen. No one knows who he is, and the original show obviously shows everybody already knows that Aang's an airbender because of the clothing and the tattoos and the fact that he can airbend. In fact, Aang wakes up in Katara's arms in the original show. In the 2 remakes, he's still passed out when they release him from the iceberg. He doesn't wake up until he's at the village, the Water Tribe village. So, but either way, the Water Tribe in both cases, they all are shocked that he's an airbender. And with the 2 remakes, their grandmother, Sokka and Katara's grandmother, had to explain what an airbender was and the fact that he's probably the Avatar because of the tattoo, because of the air nomad tattoos. Versus they find out Aang's the Avatar because he let himself get arrested by Zuko. I guess I could go to this. big key difference of the firebenders, because we're gonna go to Zuko and Iroh and all that. What's different from the firebending and the movie versus the two shows is that for some reason, and it doesn't make sense, they have to firebend when they're around fire. Like, obviously in the shows, the two shows, they can make fire come out of from the palm of their hands, or as Iroh would say, fire comes from the breast, not the muscle. But for some reason in the movie, they have to be like everybody else. Because remember, all the other like benders of the elements, they have to find something that's close to earth, water, and air. Versus the firebenders can again make the fire come out of the palm of their hands. And I guess he decided to make it fair and have all the firebenders have to bend when they're near fire, which if that's the case, they're not threatening if they have to be somewhere in fire just to bend. Like, it's easy. It would be easy for a waterbender to just put out the fire and then now they're powerless. So that's like one huge like difference of the firebenders from these two shows. Again, Shyamalan really messed this one up. He did. Now, Zuko Scar and the movie is more like, I don't even know what you say. It's like there's not even a scar, really. It looks more like a mild burn than anything else. And I guess you could say another main difference main difference that makes the recent remake different from the movie, and what makes the recent remake different from what makes the Netflix remake different from the original and the movie is that Zula is a lot more prominent in this role, and then Mei and Ty Lee, who were not introduced until the second season, comes into this to the first season of the remake. And I guess the reason being for that is just because we kind of already know like the characters and stuff like that. But then again, like Netflix is also trying to like take 20 episodes of a season and try to break it down to 8, which is still difficult. I'm not gonna lie. And if we could talk about Jong Jong again, who was Aang's firebending teacher. Obviously the movie doesn't have him, and neither does the first season, which that's the one thing that kind of mildly, and I really put in this like mildly upset a lot of fans, because it was an important feature. It's because it shows you like that Aang wasn't ready to learn firebending. It's also important because that's when Katara learns that waterbenders can heal. And that's something John Jong says he envies about the waterbenders, that while fire destroys, water heals. And not only that, Zhang Zhang was the teacher of Zhao. And then we could go to Zhao. Zhao does, like, again, he's less threatening in the movie, like, entirely. In fact, he doesn't firebend at all in the movie. Like, he firebends like twice, and he's just throwing fire. And that's it. Like, he's not putting up a fight. And then, like, the death of Zhao is different in all, well, yeah. Okay, so if I was to tell you, Zhao doesn't really die in the first season of the original show. I'll be going all over the place. I'm just naming, like, so many, like, differences and, like, comparing and contrasting. But yeah, I'm going all over the place, so sorry. But Zhao doesn't really die in the first season of Avatar. Because if you remember, and the reason why I'm going all over the place is because, come on, guys, you should have seen this show. And I'm also the one guy that likes to like pick out like so many key. I'm very picky, so I'm not like picking out every key element and stuff like that. But for a third time, what I'm trying to say, Zhao doesn't die. In the first season of the original show, technically he doesn't die. Because if you watch Legend of Korra, he comes back, but he's in the spirit world. So what happens was Aang collabs with the water spirit, and it was the water spirit, and destroys the fire nation that evaded the Northern Water Tribe. And during the fight between Zuko and Zhao, the water spirit finds Zhao and takes him into the water, and he's just never seen again. Assumingly, he does die, but what really happened was he takes Zhao into the spirit world. It's like in the book, it's like in the Bible, where Elijah enters heaven, but he never died. I feel like that's what it was. Maybe that's where they got it from too. But obviously, Elijah's sentence to heaven was more of like proving the existence of God, versus this is just because Zhao is paying the crimes for what he's done. Remember, he kills the moon spirit towards the ending of the first season, and he kills the moon spirit. I had to rethink about this. Sorry, guys. Anyway, how Zhao kills the spirit though? I think I'm trying to think if I can go back. Because I know in the original he captures the fish. That's how they all three go. They bag the fish, but Zhao releases it because Arrow tells him, "Hey, if you're gonna destroy that fish, I will do what." Okay, so I might be saying a bunch of lines here. So again, Arrow says, "Whatever you do to that fish, I will unleash tenfold." Without a warning, Zhao sets the fish on fire after releasing it. But in the remake, he stabs the fish. I think that's also what they do in the other remake, in the two remakes. I think Xiao stabs the fish. The thing though is that like Arrow fights the firebenders in the Netflix and the original. I think he does fight the firebenders in the original. For some reason, Arrow's the only firebender in the movie that could firebend without using any source of fire, and they're all afraid and they just walk away and doesn't even take up a fight. Well, I mean, no matter what, this is Arrow we're talking about. He's the Dragon of the West. Let's see. I was thinking about her too, so I'll go back to it. In the movie, there is no Suki or the Kyoshi Island or the Kyoshi Warriors. That doesn't exist in the movie. I don't know if they were gonna do it again for or they were gonna ever bring her back for a second movie if what's his face if M Night Shyamalan decided to do a second movie. But she does come back here in the remake. The only difference is that Suki never takes her makeup off, and in the remake she does. And I guess like the biggest thing about the remake, this recent remake that made the news, was Sokka was gonna be less sexist than he was in the original. And everybody was so upset about that because that was literally like that was the key of Sokka's story arc, is that he didn't think that women would be fighters and stuff like that, and that he learned how to be a good fighter with women, with Suki and the Kyoshi warriors. You gotta understand, there were more male warriors, and I don't think that the show was just being sexist. I think that's just how it was. There were just more male warriors in the Southern Water Tribe where he grew up, than pretty much female warriors. But it was also like what makes Sokka. You know, Sokka's the funniest character in the show. I won't get too much into it because all the good ones are like in the second and third season. I do hope that Netflix does release the second and third season a year apart, because otherwise I had to do this episode like every 2 seasons. So hopefully season 4, we get to do the second episode of the Avatar series. But back on track, the destruction of Kyoshi Island, and as well as Kyoshi herself. Kyoshi doesn't make an appearance in the original or in the movie, at least like in spirit form or whatever. Like she's never shown. Let's backtrack here. All right. Hold on, give me a second. Let me rephrase. Let me think of words to put into this. All right, as I try to gain words, Kyoshi is not shown until the second season, but she is shown through flashbacks and other stuff. In fact, the show brings back Kyoshi, and the show also brings it, or not brings back, but like introduces Kyoshi and Avatar Kuruk. And I don't remember if Avatar Yangshin was in there. I gotta look it up. I think she was, but like we're not introduced to Avatar Kuruk until the third season. Same thing with Avatar Yangshin, even though there are flashbacks of like Aang seeing all the past avatars. But anyway, Kyoshi makes her first appearance in the second episode of the first season when the Fire Nation attacks the Kyoshi Island. Yeah, and then back to Suki's makeup. She takes off her makeup and we see what she looks like. Versus like we see Suki without makeup in the second season, which I'm pretty sure she's coming back. They have the casting already for the second season. The other big difference is man, I feel like I'm making a boring episode with like the greatest show of all time. So if you're actually listening to this, thank you. I'm almost done. Let's say like I maybe got like 10 minutes unedited the most. Edited probably 5. I don't know. Bear with me to like 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how this is gonna get edited down. All right, better make that 12 minutes unedited. Anyway, another key difference is Boomy. We don't know Boomy is Boomy until after he has Aang do all these tests. And in the recent remake, Aang finds out Boomy is Boomy when he's already arrested. The only difference is that Bumi's more of testing Aang, of like saying like, I think in the remake it looks like he's just more of getting back at Aang, or he's just upset about Aang being gone for 100 years, versus like in the original he's testing Aang. He's giving him all these riddles and stuff like that, while putting Sokka and Katara's life in danger. And Sokka and Katara explore what was it? The secret tunnels of Amashu. Oh my gosh! And yes, guys, if you haven't seen the recent remake, that group, that secret tunnels through the mountains, secret tunnel. You guys know I had to do that, but but yeah, that hippie group shows up in the first season, unlike in the original. He shows up in the second season. And if you remember on that episode, Sokka gets separated from Aang and Katara, and he's stuck with those hippie groups. Secret Tunnel. That's just a banger right there. Again, they're trying to cram a lot into the show. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a huge. I really am not a huge fan of the recent remake. Too. I'm being honest with you guys. I can appreciate the spectacles, and I can appreciate like what is it, like all that work that goes into it. But you gotta understand, I can like a movie, but understand that it's not as directed and edited well. Versus, I cannot like a movie, but see that it's been edited good and it has some pretty good shots. It's just not a movie I would see constantly. Same thing with a show too. And the recent Avatar is just like that. Maybe with the second season, when Netflix airs it, I might gain upper hand. But I mean, it's a little bit better, obviously, than the Shyamalan version. And the Shyamalan version doesn't even have Boomy or. Regardless, I didn't even think he was gonna add those hippie guys. So there's that. I guess another one we could talk about is the whole Blue Spirit episode. The Blue Spirit episode is definitely one of, I think it's regarded as one of the best episodes, at least I would say top 10 episodes of the entire show, because like now everybody knows Zuko is, the Blue Spirit. But back then, when we all saw that for the first time, everyone was caught because of how good of a swords fighter he is. And I think the reason being is because supposedly Zuko's mom taught him how to fight with a sword, which came in handy, definitely. Let's see. So, if I may, give me like 2 seconds real quick. What I have here for all my viewers that are actually watching this, if I can at least get it in there. Yeah, I don't know. This is getting difficult. Let's see. Okay. There it is. I have this Funko Pop of the Blue Spirit, signed by the one and only Dante Bosco. Was him saying, "Hi, Zuko here." That's like the most famous line from the show was, "Hi, Zuko here." I guess the real difference is that, like, is there a real difference? I guess the only difference is just how the Blue Spirit looks, in the movie. And I guess when Zuko wakes up from being knocked, because it's pretty much the same way. The Blue Spirit, or Zuko, just as the Blue Spirit, goes into as what everyone thinks is to save Aang, but really he's just there to take Aang for himself and to take back the Avatar from, because it was Zhao that had Aang in his grasps, or it was Zhao that had Aang as a prisoner, and Zuko breaks him out, but again to pretty much take it for himself. And he gets knocked out the same way in all three variations. A bow and arrow to the face, but because the mask is pretty heavy, it didn't really no, the arrow didn't go through the mask, but it still knocked him out. The thing is that in the first movie, the mask breaks, and I think Zhao kind of knew that it was Zuko, versus like in the movie. I mean, versus like in the original, he saw the swords, which that's how he figured Zuko was the Blue Spirit. And then what was it? And then in the recent remake, I think he learned Zuko was the Blue Spirit through what was it? Oh yeah, he learned it through Azula. And throughout the entire show of the first season of the remake on Netflix, a lot of things to put in there. Zhao has been getting a lot of information from Azula. That's pretty much it. I guess another minor change is how Zuko wakes up. In the original, he wakes up and Aang's talking about his friend who used to be a firebender 100 years back before the war. And Aang asks, if things were different, well, we would have been friends. And Zuko tries to hit him with his fire blast, but Aang was able to fly away. In the movie, he sees that Zuko's about to wake up, so he flies away before Zuko can fully wake up. And Zuko sees it flying away, but he bothers not to chase after him. And then in the recent variation, Zuko wakes up so many times, and he keeps getting knocked out. And then he says the same line to Zuko. It's like, you see, we could have been friends if things were different. And Zuko tries to make his move, and then Aang uses airbending to push this canoe that Zuko was on out into the lake. I guess another change is in the show is that like the fleet that Zuko's part of, and I do like this change, by the way, because it brings something different. This fleet that Zuko is part of, and I think it's the same episode where in the remake, it's the same episode where like Iroh's telling the story of how Zuko became what he was, how he got the scar. And it's literally this, and it's funny because in the original, that episode happens before the Blue Spirit episode when they're all caught in a storm. And then in the remake, which doesn't make sense, Zuko in hiding, covering that scar that doesn't even look like a scar, is like, hey boy, you want to hear a story about the worst day of my life? Or like, what do you know about the Fire Prince? And somehow this little boy knows the entire story of why Zuko is banished and how he gets a scar. It's just a dumb scene, by the way. Never really thought I truly hated the movie until now that I'm talking about it. All right, so I'm already going to be pushing in an hour of recording, and there's still a lot of what's the word? Comparison contrast, but you know what? I'm just gonna save it. You guys gotta watch all of them for yourself. You don't have to watch the movie. I'm gonna spare you from that one, but you can obviously see the comparison contrast. You can either bitch about it, or you could just be like, you know what? Maybe they'll do something different that we don't know, because maybe they'll introduce Zhang Zhang in the second season, because Zhang Zhang and Paku, who we didn't talk about, are part of the Order of the White Lotus, not that show on HBO Max, the Order of the White Lotus. And I will say Paco is not as like egotistical in the movie as like he is in the two shows. That's what I can remember. But then again, or not Paco, Paku. Am I saying Paco or Paku? Let me know, because I'm not going to be the one editing this. But yeah, Paku isn't really like as hothead. And what I mean is like not hot-headed and egotistical, because he's always believed that like, one, women shouldn't learn to fight, and he didn't want to teach Katara to fight, or he didn't want to teach Katara waterbending to use as tactics, because he's always believed that women should use their waterbending to heal. I mean, that was just how his philosophy was. Versus like, he doesn't teach Aang or Katara how to waterbend. Katara pretty much learns on her own. I mean, that's kind of what bugs me. And it's not the woke thing or the maybe it is the woke thing. You can't be that egotistical to train yourself, And they don't mention the good story about Paku, which was a long time ago. I mean, if y'all know the story, a long time ago, Katara's grandmother and Paku were expected to be engaged 60 years prior to the show. But I think Katara's grandmother left because she couldn't deal with Paku's like egos and stuff like that. I guess I could leave it off from there. Did I ever mention how Zhao died the rest of the other two? I didn't. I only talked about him being snapped. Okay, real quick. And then I'll end it off from there, because I've been going back and forth. I should have just actually started it from like the beginning to the end of the first episode to the last episode. So maybe I'll do that. And I got to remind myself next year, if the second season comes out next year and I review it, which should be a lot easier because now there's not a movie for it. But to the point, and then I'll cut it off from here, guys. I'm sorry. I just drifted off from what I was supposed to talk about. Zhao, as I said, in the cartoon, he doesn't really die. For time I'm saying this, he just kind of gets taken away in the spirit world. And in the first remake, which is the Shyamalan version, a bunch of waterbending masters just drown him. I'll just leave it from there. And the recent one, what was it? Iroh kills him. And one last thing, Iroh's not Iroh in the first remake. He's not your tea loving, overweight, bearing, trying to be your father, Iroh. And I forgot the actor's name in the recent one, but he did a really good job. He also does Michael justice. So again, a lot more details that are different. And, remakes are always going to be different from the originals. Told you, like I said, really long segment. So I'm at 102, about to be 103 unedited. So hopefully this is like, oh man, I don't know, man, keep it. Hopefully when y'all get this, it's probably like at least 50 minutes, instead of like an extra almost 10 minutes of boredom. Anyway, if you're listening to this, thank you at least for standing by me. I mean, this was a great show. I think I just wasn't making a great episode. Maybe next time I'll actually have guests, like somebody to be on the show. Jesus, maybe my friend Omar, who I'm going to be talking with after this episode. But if things change, forget I just said that. But at least somebody. But anyway, if you're listening to this, have a great night, day, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Signing off. Thank you all very much.